Welcome to This Explainer. So today, we're dissecting something that literally every single one of us does. Every single day. Lying. Now, what if I told you that right now, as you're sitting there, your brain is fundamentally wired to believe deception? Crazy, right? And honestly, the scariest part isn't the lie itself. The most dangerous liars out there, they aren't necessarily the ones you'd suspect. They're actually the ones who've totally convinced themselves that they are telling the truth. So what if your brain is actually wired to believe lies? I know, it challenges a lot of our moral assumptions right out of the gate. We really like to think of lying as this conscious, calculated, maybe malicious choice. But the biological mystery we're about to unpack shows us a completely different reality. We're going to look at the what, the why, the how, and the hard science behind why human beings are, to be blunt, actually terrible at catching liars. Section 1. The Calculated Lie, featuring the Dan Ariely experiment. Okay, let's dive into this slightly uncomfortable piece of behavioral economics. In a very famous experiment by behavioral economist Dan Ariely, participants were actually paid to solve math problems. They took a test, and then they got to self-report their own scores. And to make it extra tempting, they were allowed to literally shred the evidence of their actual work. The result? A staggering 7 out of 10 people cheated. 7 out of 10. But here is the incredible twist. They didn't lie as big as they possibly could have. On average, people actually solved 4 problems, but they reported solving 6. They cheated just enough to get a little extra financial reward, but kept the lies small enough so they could still look in the mirror and feel like, hey, I'm an honest person. This is what scientists call a calculated lie. And spoiler alert, almost everyone does it. Section 2. Why we really lie. The motive matrix. So if we all do it, let's go ahead and peel back the next layer of the onion. Science actually breaks our deceptions down into 4 main motives. First up is avoiding punishment. This is actually the biggest motive for both kids and adults. No surprise there, right? Then there's protecting others, which is when you lie to shield someone you love from emotional pain. Then we've got social lubrication. Think of that classic moment when someone asks how you're doing and you say, "Oh, I'm fine," even when you're clearly having a terrible day. And finally, maintaining privacy. Withholding information just to protect your own personal space. Notice a pattern here? When you really look at these motives, you realize that most lies aren't inherently evil at all. They're basically just calculated survival tools. Section 3. The Stone Age Brain, 150,000-year-old hardware. Let's look at why these survival tools work so incredibly well on us. This brings us to a truly massive concept. Scientists call it the truth bias. So the crucial thing to understand is that our brains, this 150,000-year-old hardware we're still running today, actually default to believing the truth. But why? Well, picture yourself back in the Stone Age. If you heard a rustle in the grass and you stopped to skeptically analyze, is that just the wind? And it actually turned out to be a predator? Yeah, you'd be dead. Our brains evolved to assume the worst is true immediately just to ensure survival. In the prehistoric world, the punishment for skepticism was literally death. And because we are still running that exact same software today, we are naturally incredibly easy to fool. But wait, here is the absolute most mind-blowing finding of all. The very best liars out there, they don't even know they're lying. Evolutionary biologist Robert Trivers theorized that self-deception is actually an evolutionary adaptation. Think of it kind of like a feedback loop. When you craft a lie, your body instantly starts showing physical tells, right? Your nostrils might flare, your vocal pitch shifts. These are things other humans actually evolved to detect. So how does the brain eliminate those physical tells? By committing the perfect crime against your own mind. It convinces itself the lie is the truth. This drastically lowers the cognitive cost of maintaining that lie, and it drops your physical tells right down to 0. Section 4. Catching the lie. Human versus AI detection. Let's shift our focus outward to how we actually spot these deceptions. It turns out modern AI brilliantly illustrates the linguistic fingerprints of deception. Natural language processing research shows us that every single lie leaves a digital trace. First up is what's called the first-person drop. Liars unconsciously stop saying I and me because they want to psychologically distance themselves from the lie. Second is the pronoun shift. They'll replace I with he, she, or they to deflect ownership. And third, sense word overload. When someone's lying, they often dump these extra, totally unnecessary sensory details into their story, just trying to sound more credible. And this leads us to a truly fascinating paradox in digital communications. Now, you might think liars want to say as little as possible, right? Keep a low profile. But the data shows that highly motivated liars actually use 28% more words than truth tellers. When they're typing out that text message or email, their anxiety causes a verbosity paradox. Basically, the words just spill out everywhere. So as humans, we suffer from a major detection deficit. Human intuition for detecting lies is sitting at about 54.7% accuracy. Guys, that's barely better than just flipping a coin. But machine learning AI, it operates at 77 to 98% accuracy. Why such a huge gap? Well, because an AI isn't swayed by a charming smile, and it can't be manipulated by human emotion. It just tracks the linguistic shifts, the pronoun patterns, and the response timing. The brutal truth here is that humans are just way too emotional to catch a highly motivated liar. Section 5. Confronting relationship deception, the biology of betrayal. Let's bring all this science back down to a very human level. We humans have an attachment system that's wired for connection just as deeply as it's wired for oxygen. It's always humming in the background, asking, "Are you there for me?" When a lie is discovered, that answer suddenly becomes no. And instantly, your amygdala, which is your brain's threat center, just fires. 6 full seconds, that is exactly how far behind your rational brain is when your amygdala takes over. For those 6 seconds, logic just does not exist. There is only the raw biological sting of betrayal. And if that deception is repeated, like if you're dealing with gaslighting or sustained lies over time, you fall into what scientists call the hypervigilance trap. Your nervous system physically shifts from a baseline of safety to a permanent baseline of threat detection. Let me be clear, this isn't just all in your head. It causes elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep, and intense chronic exhaustion. Your biology is quite literally physically reacting to the lack of safety in your environment. Fortunately, though, science does give us an empowering 5-step framework to handle discovering a lie. Step 1, regulate yourself first. Remember those 6 seconds we just talked about? Yeah, do not confront someone while your amygdala is firing. Step 2, lead with impact, not an accusation. Share how the lie actually affected you. Step 3, ask the underlying question. A really great one is, what were you afraid would happen if you told me the truth? Step 4, listen to the root fear driving their motive matrix. And finally, step 5, state your needs moving forward rather than dictating rules. It is a highly structured way to resolve deception without letting your biology hijack the whole conversation. As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with this one core takeaway. Honesty isn't just some nice moral preference we should all aim for. It is the literal biological foundation for nervous system safety. Without basic trust, a relationship causes chronic physical stress. You absolutely deserve a bond where the truth is safe. And hey, hopefully, now that you know the anatomy of a lie, you'll be a little bit harder to fool. I want to end on a somewhat provocative thought. Look back at your own life for a second. Knowing what you know now about the motive matrix and those digital linguistic tells, what is the most convincing lie someone ever told you? Take a moment to reflect on that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you want to keep breaking down complex science into fascinating, actionable insights like this, make sure you stick around and subscribe to learn more. See you next time.
Wow, we're already at the end of the video. Come on, watch other fun videos too. And don't forget to click subscribe to the BrainBubble channel.